Before we get started, thank you to Castalia Cocktails for their support of Daily Detroit. Don't just drink cocktails, experience them with matching scents and knowledgeable barkeeps to guide you. Castalia is a great experience. Try one of their pairings or feel free to go off the menu with an adventure for your senses. The menu both tells you how boozy a drink is, and there is a full non-alcoholic lineup taking care to give you a top sensory experience no matter how you'd like to drink. Whether it's the intimate indoor bar with less than 20 seats, or when spring really decides to happen, hanging out on the patio outside, enjoying the best Detroit has to offer at 3980 2nd Avenue, Castalia is a great spot for a night out, a drink after dinner, or a date. Their new menu is called Riddles, with 8 different thought-provoking riddles that will keep your brain occupied while you imbibe. Castalia is open to all Wednesdays through Saturdays from 5 to 11 p.m., with unique experiences for small groups anytime with a reservation. I've got 2 things for you. You can learn more at CastaliaCocktails.com. That's CastaliaCocktails.com. Or you can check out the podcast I did with Dr. Kevin Peterson about drinks and the science of drinks at Cocktail Sense, wherever you download your favorite shows. All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. We have made it to the weekend. We have made it to Friday, and you have made it to your Daily Detroit for Friday, April 5th, 2024, coming to you from our studio at Techtown, celebrating 20 years of service to the community and entrepreneurs. I am Jer Stays, and across the table from me, as he is every Friday that he can, Devon O'Reilly. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Jer. Happy opening day to all that celebrate.
It is a special holiday in Detroit, is it not?
Yes, it is. Opening day is an incredibly special holiday in Detroit. I've mentioned this on podcasts previously, but I think if you're listening to this, whether the Tigers have played or not, hopefully they've won. They're doing really well this year. They're off to a hell of a start.
Regardless if they win everything out into opening day.
It's a special day.
It is, and they're doing so well, which is exciting.
And it's exciting. It gives it April in the D vibes because we got the Wings in the playoff chase. So it's really cool. And I think people should remember it's not everywhere does this. I used to think growing up, I'm like, oh, so everywhere does this. Like, we have one of the top 3 or 5 opening days in the entire country.
Yeah, most of the league is not as pumped.
No, we're like, it's us, St. Louis, Chicago, places like that.
Have you been seeing some of that draft stage from your office?
Oh, God, yeah. It's going up.
As far as these things happening, it's been so fast. I went to that event with them, and it was just completely cleared lot, and all of a sudden it's like, bam, stage.
April is going to be quite a month. I would say a transformative month, almost literally, because I drive down 94 to work sometimes, and they're not up yet, Jer. But I'm going to tell you, when those letters go up, I will be probably one of the first people to see it because I traverse 94 so often. The bases, the stumps are up.
I saw them. Yeah, a couple of listeners.
A lot of gawkers. It's interesting, Jer. I'm still going to wonder why they put it where they did because it's not like over the freeway. It's like off to the side. So you're almost encouraging like rubbernecking as you drive by it. I'm a little.
You can see the letter tilt too.
Yeah, I'm
like
not so
towards
sure.
the freeway. I mean, it's not quite the hill. Here's my question: what if you have one of those houses near there? Do you just wake up to like the big O in front of you? Like you're just having coffee and there's an I or a D?
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. They're doing a lot of like arborvitae planting and like a lot of landscaping in that area. So I guess you get a little bit of like your bonuses. I live there and I have to endure this, but at least I get some like free public landscaping around me. So I guess it's the trade-off.
Fair. Devon, you and I have both been around town. You've been a little closer. I've been a little bit farther. Where have you been?
I have been to Eatori, but I guess I don't know how we're really referring to this. I mean, Eatori has been around. This is like Eatori Part 2.
Grand reopening. Eatori Part 2, Electric Boogaloo?
Sure, for those that get the reference. It's a little bit of the same, but it's a little bit different. It's still Eatori. It's still a market and restaurant. But what they did is they basically had that small space in the old Eatori place where it was the market and restaurant and all kind of like mixed together. Now they've been more intentional about the old nail bar is the market, period. And then the whole space that was market and restaurant is now restaurant and bar exclusively. So there's much more sit-down tables. It's much more kind of like the high end with like the velvet furniture finishes, longer bar, nice marbly long bar. The cocktail menu has kind of increased. The overall food menu has kind of increased. Still have a great happy hour. I was able to pop in there and grab drinks there this week, and really friendly staff. So I think they're off to the races. I didn't get a chance to do the full sit down dinner yet. I know you also had a chance to experience it as well.
I was at the grand opening for the media preview with the saber knocking off the champagne top and everything.
What a way to kick things off. I think they're going to do really well. I love what they're doing in terms of we need that space in Capitol Park. They're going to be open for brunch soon. Right now, it's really just a dinner service, but it does open at 3, so that's kind of cool. I like a little early, as you know, Jer. A little early, happy hour at 3 o'clock, and then it rolls right into the dinner service.
Devon O'Reilly's Lunch Crusade. Maybe we need to do on the new website a specific post just about like Devon O'Reilly's lunch picks.
Oh, you should. I can't stress enough how often I am at restaurants downtown trying to find new places to go for lunch.
At the media preview, a thing that struck me, and I talked to a few people there, one thing that they said was there was a lot of demand for more sit-down space, like way more demand for people to sit down and have dinner or get some food. And that's one of the reasons why they expanded that way. Now, with 10 moving and them taking over that space, that becomes much more of a real market. Now, there is wine in the back, but like there's fresh food, there's a variety of staples. Are they the cheapest? No, but it's going to be a small market. It's going to be on the higher end. And I mean, let's be honest, it's a walkable market in an area that's kind of got like a limited addressable area, but really clutch for people. And I've had some listeners say like, hey, this is really great to have this there, and they serve really high-end stuff. They actually have the marrow provisions there.
Yes, exactly. They have some high-end stuff. They have some grab-and-go stuff. You know what I really like about this, Jerry? It kind of almost harkens to like, we're always talking about how can we be more of like, a real city, whatever that means, like a New York,
whatever that means to you.
But that Capitol Park area, you really get that vibe, especially as the weather starts to warm up, because Eatori has a very kind of like outward-facing patio area. And I asked the manager there about lunch. He said, well, his answer was no, we're not going to open for lunch right now, but you have the market that has grab and go food. It has grab and go drinks. It even has grab and go like singles of, beer, canned wine. So essentially, if you, as it gets into spring, summertime, the lunch at Eatori is just get one of their freshly made sandwiches or something from the deli, grab a can of wine, go out in a Capitol Park and have yourself a picnic.
I mean, it's perfectly set for it. I mean, Capitol Park, when you look at it, whether it's New York or Chicago or any of the others, all it's missing is like a little sign for a subway or a L stop. And it looks exactly like any of those big cities.
It really is. If Campus Martius is like our Times Square, which is like tourists and, a lot of like other activity, outsider activity, Capitol Park has really become the town square. I will walk through there all the time, and it's much more locals. You see the same people, and you see people from other things. You see local media folks. You see local business folks. You see artists. It's just an incredible mix in Capitol Park, and it's become a really vibrant space. So having Eatori open in an even more expanded model, I think it's going to be just another addition, a great addition to that area. Jer, I'm obviously extolling the virtues of Detroit as I always do. You went, as I will just refer to as the nether regions.
Or as Coleman Young would say, the almighty suburbs.
The lands of the north.
I was pretty north, so I made it all the way out because I had some family stuff to do to Sylvan Lake.
I couldn't tell you where it is.
It was a drive. I think it was 35 minutes.
Due north, due northwest. Where are we going this way?
We're kind of going like Bloomfield Township-ish.
Okay, but past that, obviously.
Like what kind of? They're all kind of nestled together. It's kind of interesting.
Bloomfield is fine. Bloomfield feels accessible. I can get there.
Yeah, you can get there. It's just you have to make the like decision. Now, I actually would encourage if you're into this kind of stuff that we're going to talk about, then it might be worth the trip. The first hint that I had from a listener was that I needed to go to Ellen's.
Okay.
For a Maurice salad.
Well, that scratches me where I itch.
Well, yeah, and I was like, all right, in the off chance that Devon ever makes it to northern Oakland County.
I don't think that's going to happen, but
it's possible. Anything's possible.
Sure.
Is the Maurice salad worth the stop? And the answer is yes.
Really?
It is one of the best Maurice salads in the middle of nowhere near downtown Detroit that I have had. And it was a cute little place. It's totally unassuming because it's literally in a strip mall, in the same strip mall as a Dollar General.
And this was a listener pick?
Yes.
I'll give them credit.
Full bakery in there too as well. Like I walked out of there with like a cheesecake for Easter.
Oh, nice. Okay. This sounds really nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's really quaint, really cute. And there were 2 stops that I made for stuff that I want to highlight, which I think they're going to get under your skin for a reason, but we'll get into this. I think they were fabulous. They were fun. If you're into home and garden stuff, which you don't strike me as a home and garden kind of guy.
I'm a homeowner who does landscaping, Jared. I live in the suburbs. Don't give me too little credit here.
So Detroit Farm and Garden was absolutely gorgeous. It is this kind of like there's this building. It had all kinds of like bird sculptures, stone sculptures. I could have walked out of there with a dog on a pedestal the height of me.
Okay, you're getting a little tchotchke here, but all right.
The vibe when I walked in there, I was like Indian Village, Grosse Pointe, in the middle of Sylvan Lake. And then I find out from a listener, the owner is from Grosse Pointe. So imagine that commute, Grosse Pointe to Sylvan Lake. But I was like, I recognize the vibes of Indy. And when I was in there, it was like my grandmother would have loved it. The selection of flowers, the little like bird sculptures. I ended up with, as a gift, walking out with a cement duck for someone.
Oh my God. Jer,
Would you like a cement duck?
No, because
How about a good goose?
I have a cement duck in my backyard.
So you would go to this
It was
place.
left there from the previous owner. My daughter loved the cement duck. I don't think I need another one though. I'm more of a man when you talk about that. I like more of I appreciate a freshly mowed lawn with no bald spots and some nice clean mulch.
What about a nice vase? Like one that's big enough that you could stick your whole daughter in. Or maybe yourself, you could actually hide. Some of these are so big.
Yeah, it sounds a little cumbersome, but perhaps.
It's a classy joint. It's really well done and really unique kinds of plants there. They're very well taken care of. One thing that hit me right off the bat, like, do you ever go to, and this is not an ad, it was just stunning to me. And I also found out that they provided a bunch of the flowers for the Udolph Garden on Belle Isle.
Oh.
You ever go to like Home Depot or whatever, and like you see, or Lowe's or you name it, and like you see a bunch of like kind of sickly pansies or other kinds of plants?
You're talking about people or plants?
Plants,
Okay.
just like flats of plants. These are the most brightly colored flats of plants I have ever seen in my life.
Oh.
Like all of these were being like hand trimmed and cared for. Like this is the elite. I feel like I walked into the Apple store of Home and Garden.
It's like the difference between going to like a big box grocery store and then going to like
The Westbourne.
a Garden Fresh or a place that's, gets their produce local. I can get behind that.
Then the other place I stopped was called Fleur, Detroit.
Yeah, another Detroit, huh?
So here's the thing.
They're not in Detroit though, are they?
But in the suburbs, they use Detroit like with reckless abandon. So does this bother you?
I think they're a little too reckless. Of course it bothers me. You're not in Detroit. What do you
So what is the definition to you? Does it have to have at least one outlet in Detroit?
Yeah, you have to have a presence in Detroit. You have to have a store in Detroit. You have to, maybe if you like became really popular in Detroit and you ended up, moving and opening a larger space out in the suburbs, but you had like started in Detroit. But like just own your own city, man. Like embrace your own city. Like
So should it be Metro Detroit blankety blank?
How about just Sylvan? Guess where? You're in Sylvan apparently. So how about just use Sylvan? Be proud of your city. We don't call things.
So what about Daily Detroit? We covered it.
We don't call things. Yeah, but where are we sitting? We're sitting right in the middle of Detroit here. At
talking about the region.
We are sitting. Yeah, we're talking about the region, but we are sitting here in Detroit. Our studio, your studio, has always been in the city of Detroit. Dearborn doesn't do this. When we open to something, we'll put Dearborn on it. We don't put Detroit on something.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me of comedian Paul Elia, who was on the show recently, and he made a joke about Detroit being Motown because instead of, nowadays there's so many people named Mohammed. And of course his comments lit up with Dearborn, that's Dearborn the whole time. So they were very specific.
Well, there's a lot of Mohammeds all over the place, let me tell you. But I have met quite a few in Dearborn, of course. Additional pushback would be, where does it stop? So you're telling me Sylvan Lake's calling stuff Detroit.
Oakland County. It's in Oakland County. It's in the Tri-County.
Okay, but our Tri-County is arbitrary, Jer. You're being completely arbitrary. We could get to Flint. We could get to Lansing. Can something in Lansing be Detroit something? Can something in Flint be Detroit something? I mean, you're getting into other metro areas. It's where does it stop?
All right.
If I don't stop it in Detroit, it doesn't stop.
I do want to shout out Fleur, Detroit, because they had a really nice stuff, really like high-end, some of the interior home goods as well. They do like floral design, weddings, all that kind of stuff. It was a really enjoyable experience. A couple of things to check out with getting yourself a Maurice Salad in Sylvan Lake, apparently not Detroit. And I would like to hear what people think. dailydetroit@gmail.com, 313-789-3211. What is the rule to you on using the term Detroit? Because, I think about this. WXYZ, Detroit, in Southfield. Though they started here, they're in Southfield and been there for a long time. The only TV station you could say that would actually be blah, blah, blah Detroit would be Channel 4, my alma mater.
Which I appreciate. But I will go back to this. Before I get too much hate mail, I want to be clear. We're getting into a larger conversation. I think that if you're talking to someone from out of state, let's say, if you're talking to someone from out of state, out of country, whatever, Detroit can mean wherever you're from. Jerry, if you're talking to somebody in Miami, Florida, you're from Detroit. You live in Detroit. This restaurant was in Detroit that you went to. But if you're talking to somebody in Michigan, like in the state of Michigan, like in state, you have to use the actual place you live. You're not from Detroit unless you actually are from Detroit. You don't live in Detroit you actually live in the city boundaries of Detroit. You didn't go to a place in Detroit unless you actually went to somewhere in the city boundaries of Detroit. Like, period, end of story. If you're talking to another Michigander, you use the actual city or town that you are referring to or from.
I would love to hear what people think on this one. dailydetroit@gmail.com. There was some news that we covered briefly on the show about an autonomous shuttle running from Corktown through downtown to the riverfront. Bringing it up here, Devin O'Reilly, because you are very familiar with this whole mobility space. It's kind of something that you've had your hands in for a long time. I want to get your thoughts on it because there's been an interesting mix of reactions to that piece, including, hey, this isn't really transit. Hey, we should invest in something more hardcore, or are people even going to use this, all this other stuff, a wide range. And people have strong feelings about a self-driving shuttle. What are some of your thoughts with this?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to address all those different sentiments because I know they're out there.
This conversation though before,
Correct.
It's always a kind of a spectrum.
It's a little bit of a spectrum. And this is what I will say. I'm excited to see this. It's kind of the evolution of what we're trying to do. The city of Detroit, the powers that be. Do you recall, Jer, when May Mobility had the shuttle that Quicken used? Remember there was that fixed loop shuttle a few years back?
It still was. Is it still there? I saw it there recently.
Okay. I don't think so.
It was a very small vehicle.
It was pre-COVID. Just pre-COVID, they had the little fixed loop autonomous vehicle shuttle that took workers like from parking lots to their office buildings.
It was a very small vehicle that it held like 6 people, but it was not like a van like this.
So that was the first autonomous pilot. This is kind of the evolution of that. This is more of a fixed route autonomous shuttle that's going to run, again, like you said, from Michigan Central over to the riverfront, almost to Belle Isle. It's kind of the next step. I've always said, I am looking forward to the day, and I believe it will happen, that we'll see these autonomous shuttles on places like Michigan Avenue, Grand River, Jefferson. I think that's the next step, is these fixed route autonomous shuttles. You're seeing the Cavenue project on 94 is actually coming close to completion as far as the infrastructure. So
I was driving out to Ann Arbor and I saw
there's a dedicated lane out there, and that's going to be for testing and deploying autonomous vehicles. And I think that's what you're going to see. I would love to see it. I would love to get an autonomous shuttle from my home in Dearborn to downtown Detroit. That would be fantastic. And I think this is the step to get there.
So why autonomous over transit?
Well, first of all, it's a technology play, right? People want to continue to advance technology. Just think of anyone. And if someone has any kind of a tech interest, why analog when you can do digital? Why double down on analog when there's this opportunity for enhancing technology? I think that, first of all, just transit. Let's be real, Jer. Transit is incredibly expensive. We're not building infrastructure. This shuttle is not going to cost anywhere near what it would cost.
The whole pilot program is like $1.5 million or something.
So that's a big factor. That's a huge factor, Jer. So this is not like, but for if we had $250 million, we could have built the trains. Well, for $250 million, we're not talking about it. We're talking about a fraction. Okay. And I think that it's a tech conversation. It's being driven also by the private sector. The private sector, places like Ford, Rocket, doubling down on autonomous technologies.
It is my experience in Metro Detroit that from a policy perspective, we almost always choose the private sector. That came up with like the DT rate hikes. It came up with other stuff. We generally, as a policy, as a region, say private sector. If we can, we lead with the private sector first.
Because they can be more nimble. They can be more agile with their dollars. They can invest directly. They can get things moving. The cogs of the machine of the public sector move so slow. Everyone knows this. I don't think anybody would disagree. I work with state of Michigan people a lot, and things just move slower. Even if they're moving in the right direction, even if it is a positive, things just move so much slower. Private businesses and private dollars can move a lot more quickly. There's a lot less red tape. They have the ability to move more nimbly. And so that's usually when you get that done. So, it's like if you want to get a project done, these public-private collaborations, it should surprise nobody that those are the ones that are happening more quickly. Those are the ones you're actually seeing, because when you get the public-private collaboration, now you can start moving quickly.
I feel like this all can tie together. So if you think about a fixed line service that maybe has 10 lines or 12 lines or whatever, but it's really good service, and then you fill in autonomous between those places. And I feel like that's kind of the vibe that I got from Tim Slusser, who does the mobility stuff for the city of Detroit, and even like the shared autonomous vehicle ideas that he's had for that. to connect these areas.
Well, now here's my final thing, Jer. And this is for all those well-meaning transit folks that I know many are listeners. And here's a little transit porn for you, if it will. We keep talking about this or that, like either or, this autonomous vehicles or light rail transportation. What I'm envisioning for those people is, we're not going to build. I don't think we're going to build more some actual track with actual queue line stuff. But why not think about it like this? Why can't autonomous technology and light rail and mass transit come together and have an autonomous queue line type light rail on Michigan Avenue with a dedicated lane or on Grand River? And this is my final piece on this, Jer. This is where I do think you would get some public-private sentiment and you would get private dollars and public infrastructure is people on Grand River are, Grand River, let's say the spokes of the wheel. We all know what the spokes of the wheel are. If you got autonomous dedicated lane of either call them buses, whatever vehicle you want to, shuttle people through in, autonomous shuttles along those arteries, that is real. That is real. And I think that can happen.
You may throw your coffee at me. I'm willing to take it. Just don't get it over the computer. Isn't this an argument? If you're going to say Michigan Avenue, if you're going to say especially in greater downtown, isn't this an argument for something like a queue line expansion? Because that is basically autonomous. I mean, there's a controller there, but those are that is the perfect example. It runs on time. It does not hit traffic. Isn't that an argument for a people mover real expansion?
No, Jared, no, because you missed what I'm saying here for a second. Let me go back. I'm saying a queue line that doesn't need tracks. We don't need to build out miles and miles and waste hundreds of millions of dollars on building out tracks. Take the rails off the queue line, make it an autonomous shuttle, and just build out a dedicated lane.
Autonomous bus rapid transit then?
It essentially is. That's what I'm essentially describing. But everything is how you give it to people, how you serve it to the public.
Because the public doesn't want to buy buses.
Right, exactly. The public doesn't want buses. So I'm trying, you got to think about how you package this. And that's what it's going to come down to is how do we package this to the public in a palpable way where they're like, oh, an autonomous light rail, that sounds cool.
And my family works at Ford, and so this is going to benefit my Ford friend who works there, and they're going to get their job and whatever.
An autonomous transportation shuttle, that sounds like the way of the future. Well, what is it really in practice? It's kind of like you said, maybe a reticulated bus system that looks really cool and has a dedicated lane. Important, I'll say that again, dedicated lane, which is why the spokes of the wheel work. We have capacity to take out a lane on any of those streets that I mentioned. So that's real, Jer. I'll throw out a bold prediction, even though we're not doing end of year stuff. We're going to see
spring.
I'll throw out a bold middle of the year prediction. We will see what I described: autonomous vehicles transporting people along at least Michigan Avenue, if not Grand River and Jefferson, before we see the cap on 75.
Okay, marked and recorded. Before we go, we need to mention about a pretty stunning renovation. Now, our friend Robin over at Urbanized Detroit shared some pictures and a little bit of a write-up. I definitely plan on talking to her about it soon. But the David Whitney building, getting a real shine up.
It was such a beautiful building. I mean, that's the thing. Let's be clear. The building itself is so freaking beautiful. But the building itself doesn't need to shine up. Here's what's happening. It's getting kind of shined up for the rooms to match the glory that the exterior and the lobby already have. I think in totality, like a $20 million renovation that took place. All new rooms, new second level design for those of you who have been there. The whole lobby has been redesigned. We've discussed, there's obviously now Presley's, a food and restaurant, breakfast, lunch, dinner concept.
We had shared the library bar.
Library bar's in there. It's just completely redone, and it's slowly happened. And just this week, we're finally seeing the grand reopening of what is now the David Whitney Hotel. So if you're used to passing by there and seeing the Aloft Hotel, and if you remember when they had like the rainbow stripes on the top when you walked in, gone. Everything has kind of been melded with future and past into a modern but classic hotel. So it will now be referred to as the David Whitney Hotel.
Robin says that many of the chairs were sourced from the Detroit Athletic Club, and a bunch of the art is from the Detroit Historical Society.
I mean, I've said it before here. I'm a little biased, but the Roxbury Group really is kind of the preeminent, historical development outfit in the city. So when they do something, they are going to make sure they inject real Detroit history into it. And that's what they did here.
And a Detroit City Distillery bar cart in every room.
That is really cool. I didn't know that.
I thought you would be the person who'd be like, yes, that's
I love the idea. I didn't come up with it, but I think it's a fantastic idea.
Devin O'Reilly, it's always so good to talk to you.
Yes, Jer, a disparate array of topics today, but always enjoyable to talk about.
All over the place, getting ready for the weekend. Of course, go Tigers. Always excited for them. Eat them up, eat them up. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
I'm Devin O'Reilly.
Thank you to everyone behind the scenes who makes this podcast happen. Thank you to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/dailydetroit. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk next week.